But yeah, this has been my first week here. Well, first week back. Last time I was in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, which is not very far from here, but most of my work, well, a lot of my work is in Nashville. Well, like I would say probably like 30% of my work is in Nashville, and the other 60 is in like middle Texas or Tennessee. But like Waverly, McEwen, Prim Springs, Tim Springs, I think that's what it's called. But yeah, I've been out west a lot for these files that I've been doing, and Waverly was hit hard, y'all. They were hit really hard, and it's really interesting, you know, talking to people from place to place, from disaster to disaster. Everyone's a little bit different. So like when I talk to people in Louisiana, they are used to having hurricanes. They are used to, you know, major weather events, and it's more, you know, of the same. And while they've lost, you know, a lot of possessions, they've lost a lot of things, they usually are like, well, I'm blessed because my family's okay and all that kind of stuff. And then in Michigan, people are mostly just super surprised by the flooding because they're just not used to getting flooding like that. In South Carolina, it's a good bit of surprise, but a little bit overwhelmed. Because I mean, they definitely do get hit by hurricanes there, but people in Charleston are really used to, you know, being hit. But a lot of people inland were hit. So I was in, I want to say, Seneca, and then Waltersboro, South Carolina. Those are like the main places I was at, and they were pretty distraught. They were pretty devastated. Tennessee is a really interesting case because in Tennessee, it's not so much an issue of a natural disaster. I mean, it is a natural disaster, of course, but a lot of it is due to infrastructure. Many of their issues is because they have really odd building laws as far as how much you can build and where you can build, and honestly the utter disregard for the water table and the way that water flows. They really don't care, and they've been building a whole lot here in Nashville especially, and I think a lot of the issues that they're facing as far as having natural disasters, they are mostly man-made and preventable. And it's really frustrating for me as a person who is a environmental scientist. I get really frustrated, you know, going to these people's houses and seeing that they have, you know, 3 feet of water in their house, and they are not like in any area, like they're not in a floodplain, they're not in a flood zone at all, and it's mostly because their neighbors have diverted their water onto their land, and that's something that's totally okay to do in Tennessee for whatever fucking reason. And the city is really bad about helping those people. They really don't care, and I just hate it for them, because not only is this, like, you know, money people are pouring into trying to rebuild their lives, it's a harrowing experience to go through a flood. Like, it's terrifying to feel like this might be your last day on earth when there's just a rainstorm, and it shouldn't, you know, the damage shouldn't be as bad as it has been and continues to be. The people that are the most affected that I talk to are people in Texas. In Texas, they had the freeze last year. Was it last year? I think it was like the end of last year, beginning of this year. They had that really bad freeze, and I don't know if y'all know anything about like building and zoning laws in Texas. Texas is fucking weird to begin with. Houston is super weird because they don't give a fuck where you build at all. But they, for whatever odd reason, I don't know, because I don't know really a whole lot about building, but for whatever odd reason, all their pipes are located in their ceilings. And so when the freeze happened, no one was fucking ready. And people's ceilings were collapsing. And like, I've never heard of that. I mean, probably it's a way to save money. But everyone has the galvanized pipes, and they just burst. They all just burst in their ceilings and destroyed not just their homes, but their things. And of all the people that I've talked to that have been affected by disasters, the people in Texas, they were hit the hardest. Like, that's the most times I've had a conversation with someone where they started crying was Texas. It's kind of ironic how we see Texas as like, big personalities, big people, rough and tumble. And when they were, affected by this disaster, there's a lot of people that lost their shit. And it just goes to show you, it's not, these people are weak in any way. These disasters are, monumentous. They're life-changing. They're terrifying. And it's just really sad to see, like, so many people I talked to, they just got a new house and their pipes burst in their ceilings, and now they owe, not just a mortgage, but they also have to pay thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of dollars to get their house put back together. The houses that have their pipes in the walls or in the floor and the foundation, they were not as affected. There's a few people who had pipes in their foundation that, because of the expanding nature of water when it's freezing and thawing, it did damage the foundation. So they did need to spend quite a bit of money to have their foundation fixed. But across the board, usually people that had the lower lying pipes had way less damage than people that had them in the ceilings and the walls. And I can only suspect that this will probably change the way that Texas does building, especially with like hydrology and how their water's moving. But you can't be certain. But I think in the future, you're going to see a lot more disasters and a lot more people are going to be affected. And so hopefully, that will kind of spark the initiative to make some changes. But you never know. Also people that are pretty affected are California. California and Oregon, Oklahoma, some Colorado, where they had the wildfires. And so when wildfires come through, they destroy everything. And so there's a lot of people who, they're really distraught, they're devastated because they've lost everything. And then there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, well, it seems pointless to be worried about it because it's not like I can do anything about it. And so there's a lot of kind of just stoic resignation that this thing has, changed my life in ways that are impossible to undo. And, we just keep moving. I had a guy that called me and I was talking about his damages to him, and he was so upset, and I could understand being upset about this because this is upsetting. So this is in Texas. All the power has gone out, and he puts on his generator, and his generator's in his garage, and so he's, kind of sitting pretty, having this generator going, gotten his power back, but then the generator catches on fire. And because in Texas, when the freeze happened, they turned all the water off, and so he couldn't put the fire out when his generator caught on fire, and it burned his entire house down. And so it was crazy to read his application, because when you kind of get into the groove of doing these interviews / inspections, you have a pretty good idea of what the damage is in an area. So when you call someone, you're kind of expecting like your pipes burst in your ceiling, or your pipes burst in, and you're out in your backyard, something like that. You're used to the pipes bursting. But this guy was like, my whole house is gone. And I was like, how did that happen? And I mean, it was primarily because the city decided to turn off all the water, and it was a, you know, preemptive kind of thing that they did, but it caused lasting damages to a lot of people.
Go ahead.
And I'm almost at the end of the path, guys, so I think I'm going to bid you adieu. And so ends my first week in Tennessee. It's been pretty good. Yeah, so far so good. Am I on the right path? Okay, yeah, I am. I'm making sure I was going back to the parking lot because there's a lot of diverging paths and they don't really have, like, not all of them have labels on them. So, don't always know where the fuck I'm going. And because I'm pretty good with directions, but because I am kind of preoccupied talking, I'm not really paying attention to where I'm going and, you know, my surroundings. So, you know, if someone came out of the woods and, like, fucking stabbed me, that would just be it. It is what it is. I guess I'm fucking dead now. Ooh. But, yeah, so I'm, at the end. So, I will talk to y'all later.